Sime Darby Plantation submitted a comprehensive report to the US Customs and Border Protection over forced labour claims against the planter. In a BORS filing, SDP said the report included a detailed assessment of its Malaysian operations mapped against each of the International Labour Organization forced labour indicators. Also in the report, an in-depth description of improved governance structures and management systems, copies of policies, guidelines and standard operating procedures, and details of facilities at STP's operating units. The planter also backs it up with corresponding supporting evidence and independent reports from third-party consultants appointed by SDP to assess various aspects of its operations. It says the aim of the report is to demonstrate STP's full compliance with the US import regulations and international labour standards, and that the company has internal controls and systems in place to protect the rights of its workers and ensure their well-being whilst addressing and removing the existence of any possible indicators of forced labour. The Plantation Group said that it will give its full cooperation and continue to engage with the CBP to modify the finding. It said it will release an announcement to Bursa Malaysia Securities on any material development on the matter on a timely basis. To recap, the CBP had on December 30th, 2020 issued a withhold release order to SDP and subsequently issued the findings on January 28th this year against the group's palm oil and palm oil products, saying that it was all produced using convict, forced or indentured labour. Recently, US-based Cargill and Italy's Ferrero made public their intentions to stop buying palm oil from SDP, which analysts said reignited investors' ESG concerns over the company. Nestle Malaysia saw its net profit for the first quarter of FY22 improve by 17% year-on-year to 205.2 million thanks to higher sales coupled with lower COVID-19 related expenses. Revenue for the quarter likewise grew by 17% to 1.69 billion, driven by both higher domestic and export sales. The company knows that the improved results were achieved despite the impact of increased commodity prices as well as the impact of Cukai Makmur. Even with the better numbers, Nestle warns that the global environment remains very challenging, with widespread inflation gaining traction across the world and also in Asia, aggravated by the war in Ukraine, impacting further prices and availability of key food commodities such as wheat, barley and sunflower oils. Even so, Nestle says that 2022 is shaping up as a year of solid growth in the top line and some pressure on the bottom line as it works to balance the tensions in costs with internal efficiencies and moderate price increases. CEO Wan Aranol says that the group remains focused on delivering high-quality, great-tasting and nutritious products that meet the diverse needs of Malaysians, alongside ensuring excellence in consumer communications, digital engagement and in-store activities. He adds that Nestlé also continued to accelerate its sustainability agenda during the quarter, explaining that 100% of its electricity needs come from the green tariff enabled by the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources. Westports Holdings saw its net profit decline by 27% year-on-year for the first quarter of FY22 to 151.9 million due to the one-off prosperity tax and the absence of other income recognised in the first quarter of FY21. This was despite revenue ticking up by 1.6% to 516.4 million from 508.2 million previously, primarily driven by growth in container revenue, particularly value-added services. Westports says it made a tax provision of 97 million for an effective tax rate of 39% due to the Cukai Makmur. In a statement, Westports said the container segment contributed 88% to the group's revenue by handling a throughput volume of 2.39 million 20-foot equivalent units in the first quarter of FY22, 10.2% lower than the 2.66 million TEUs handled in the first quarter of FY21. It blamed the lower quarterly volume to disturbances in the European supply chain, economic sanctions and closures of some ports at various points in time in Asia. Group MD Datuk Ruben Emir Nyanalingam Abdullah says that external developments became more challenging as the quarter progressed, adding that the company saw a 52% increase in fuel costs as its terminal operating equipment uses fuel input, which is priced commercially and not subsidized. As such, Westports is projecting possibly near identical container throughput volume in the current year compared with the previous year, subject to material changes. passengers. Meanwhile, Ruben says that Westports has set up a board sustainability committee which will oversee policies and practices relating to ESG matters and has a target to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Cycle and Carriage Bintang, which distributes Mercedes-Benz cars in Malaysia, said that its first quarter FY22 net profit more than doubled to 8.55 million as it sold more cars. Revenue rose to 300 million from 292.8 million on higher vehicle sales volume, helped by Malaysia's sales tax reduction, which supported consumer demand. There was also an increase in after-sales volume as a result of easing of lockdown restrictions. Cycle and Carriage also said that a more favourable sales mix and lower financing costs also helped to improve earnings. No dividend was declared for the quarter. Looking ahead, Cycle and Carriage says market recovery and consumer sentiment remain uncertain. In addition, it is expected that the imbalance in global demand and supply of semiconductor chips will not be fully resolved in 2022, and the situation will continue to impact the automotive industry. The company says it takes a long-term view on its strategic goals, focusing on bolstering its capabilities to bring exceptional journeys to customers and employees while staying on track and agile with its business improvement plans. AirAsia's parent Capital A said that the budget airline expects its daily number of passengers and Malaysia flights to triple during the Hari Raya Aidilfitri peak travel period across the country between April 30th and May 4th. In a statement, Capital A said that the airline is expected to carry more than 52,000 daily guests across all airports in Malaysia over the festive period. There will also be an average of 370 AirAsia Malaysia flights, more than 200% of the current number of flights operating from its hubs in Malaysia during the peak. CEO Tan Sri Tony Fernandez said that the country is finally fully reopened just in time for the festive season and that the company looks forward to reuniting families and friends who have been kept apart by movement restrictions. Fernandez says the hope is for everyone to come together to ease the travel frictions and restrictions, to stimulate air travel and support the global economic recovery.